This is the High School Football America podcast for April the 27th, 2020. I'm Jeff Fisher. The High School Football America podcast is brought to you by GameStrat, America's premier sideline instant replay system with outstanding reliability and customer service and different plans priced right for every coach's budget. To get a demo, go to GameStrat.com or click on the GameStrat banner ad located on every page of HighSchoolFootballAmerica.com. Well, I say it every time I get to do an interview from the state of Pennsylvania. I love Pennsylvania, and even though the Pennsylvania boy is left, you can't take Pennsylvania out of the boy. And heading to Philadelphia, where the St. Joseph's Prep Hawks have done some pretty special things over the last 7 years. They're back-to-back state champs last year, finishing number 10 in the High School Football America 100. A lot of kids back. We're going to talk about that on the back end of this interview. But the reason we're calling up head coach Tim Roken today, who is heading into his second year, it was a big weekend for the Hawks. St. Joseph's Prep had 3 players taken in the NFL draft. IMG had the most with 4, but right behind them was Philadelphia. And number 35, the Lions took DeAndre Swift. Number 141, the Texans taking John Reed. And then at 192, the Packers taking John Runyon. And Coach Roken's here to talk about a great weekend and what should be a very special year ahead for the Hawks. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Hey, appreciate you having me. And it's a great weekend for our community at St. Joe's Prep and our football program, and 3 great young men joining the NFL ranks and going to be great ambassadors for our program as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And you've got a lot of kids that are probably this year going to be in the same position 4 years or so from now. But let's take you back. And before I started rolling tape here, I was reminiscing about living in Southern California, and you guys came out there and took on Oaks Christian and did a number on them. And we're going to start with DeAndre Swift because, as I said to you, I remember you put him in the slot, and 80 yards later, it was 7-0 Hawks, which was kind of cool for this Pennsylvania guy to laugh at all the Southern Californians who thought we weren't that good. But let's start with there. What are your memories of DeAndre Swift, other than he was a pretty darn good football player for the Hawks?
DeAndre's, always been a very upstanding young man. His parents, Darren and Ayana, done a great job raising him. And, the first thing that jumps out to you is a smile on his face, light up a room. And was always very coachable, always a very driven young man, always want to be great. Put a lot of pressure on himself at a young age to hold himself to a very high standard. But in time and being able to learn and develop under some older guys within the program, including John Reed, who was also drafted, and Olamide Zacchaeus, who's with the Falcons and was picked up as an undrafted free agent last year. They both were seniors when he was a sophomore, and he was able to learn from them at a young age and developing leadership. And then as they left, he became the leader of our program. And he went on to do great things for us, obviously, and do that at the University of Georgia, and kind of take the same path under Sony and Nick Chubb there.
Talking to Tim Roken, the head coach of St. Joseph's Prep, 3 players taken in the NFL draft over the weekend. I mentioned, putting DeAndre in the slot, and you're an offensive guy. The guy that went to East Stroudsburg University. I had to sneak that one in there, give the Warriors a little shout out there. But as the guy that's able to have you've had a lot of weapons, but in DeAndre, you could put him wherever, right? Like I said, you put him in the slot. that game out there in Southern California. What was it like to be an offensive mind and knowing you could put him anywhere on the field and he'd perform, whether it's running the ball or catching the football?
Yeah, part of it is making sure you're, as an offensive coordinator, that you want to put your players in the best position possible and put your team in the best position possible. And getting the ball to DeAndre Swift in space was pretty ideal in terms of making sure that there would probably be something good that came out on the other end of it. But no, absolutely. He was someone that came in as a freshman, and we knew very, very early that we needed to find ways that we could find ways to get him involved in the offense, but not overload him with information that it would hurt his performance. So I think our coaches did a great job at trying to find ways to get him involved in catching screen passes, putting him in the backfield, running zone and power, and screen passes, and then as well as some routes from the slot also. And we kind of asked that of our running backs, within our system, so that with our kind of up tempo and tempo system, that we don't have to take them off the field. And DeAndre took it upon himself to make sure that he got with the coaches and wanted to make sure that he could maximize his potential being on the field as many plays as possible. So took it upon himself to make sure that he was going to make sure he knew as much of the offense as possible to do that for us.
Make that OC look like a genius, right, Coach?
Yeah, those guys, help me sleep a little bit more at night, and make my job a little bit easier for sure. So,
Tim Roken on the line, St. Joseph's Prep. It's going to be a big 2020 when we get to it, and I do think we're going to get to it this year. Let's get a few thoughts here before we turn our attention to 2020. John Reed, I remember that was back in Pennsylvania a lot when he was playing his senior year, and had a chance to watch him. But thoughts on John? It was also great for the fans there to be able to keep it close to home and watch him play his college ball at Penn State. But what do you remember about John as a Hawk?
Yeah, so John again, very very similar to DeAndre, made an impact within our program very early. He went to a camp with us. I remember the day he graduated from grade school. We were leaving for a camp to go to Boston College. And he went up there and earned himself a scholarship before technically probably even became a St. Joe's Prep Hawk in terms of putting on the uniform. But from that day, I mean, and very early, you knew John was, again, just someone that was just so driven and competitive, that always wanted to be a student of the game. And that's something that, the stories are endless of him just trying to kind of get an extra film work. And I remember going up to Penn State on his recruit visit, and they're having the barbecue and all that good stuff outside, and he just wanted to go up in coach's office and watch some film. I mean, this is a young man that is just dedicated to the game and trying to find ways to get better. And I think he had an outstanding performance in Indianapolis that turned into him shooting up the draft board. And Coach O'Brien, who was when we won our first state title in 2013, was standing on our sideline when John Reed ran down the sideline and caught the touchdown pass to start off the second half. He ran right past Coach O'Brien, and he was going to go there. And then Coach O'Brien wound up going off to the Texans, and here we are a few years later, and he's able to draft him to his organization. So it's a pretty cool thing for him.
Full circle there for him. Tim Roken on the line, head coach at St. Joseph's Prep. And want some thoughts on John Runyon, but, we've got the NFL pedigree there. I mean, bloodline, I guess, is the best thing to call it, with his dad playing. You guys also have several players on the team this year that have that NFL bloodline. So thoughts on John, but I'd also like you to talk a little bit, if you can, about the pressure on the kids, right? The kids that have dads that played at the level, on Sundays and all that. What are some of the things that you guys do in the program to take a little bit of that pressure off? Because we know those kids are pressurized just from the fact that their last name is, fill in the blanks, right? So tell me a little bit about John and how you think he did with that, and how you kind of talk to these other players about making sure you're your own man, if you will.
Yeah, I think, John, again, came in with the same thing. He was, I always look back because I laugh. He came in. He was tall, lanky, and he's always been very athletic. Before he kind of blew up into the monster that he is now physically. He was tall and lanky coming in as a freshman, and I remember in our camp, and I was the young me, trying to find ways offensively to score points. I'm trying to put him at tight end because he could run around and catch the ball, and everybody's like, all right, well, you realize he is going to be a tackle at the next level, right? So let's make sure we're getting his hand in the dirt. But didn't take too long where he was doing that for us. And his dad was actually around a lot, helped out on staff a little bit with our offensive line coaches, and Tom Sugden and John Connors at the time do a phenomenal job in developing guys along the way, and many guys go on to Division I programs, and John Runyon obviously is a lot of them, and obviously had the genes behind it, which is a huge piece of it there. But another young man that might have had the genes in terms of the size and the athleticism a little bit, but he was very driven to be great at what he did every day in practice in terms of reps he took, and then executing on game day, and was a big leader for us up front on the offensive line in his years of starting for us, and then obviously went on and was for that for Michigan as well. And I'm sure even though he was drafted later towards the end of the overall NFL draft, I'm sure he'll make an impact very quickly in camp as well once those guys get to that point, because he's a very gifted young man, but also understands the game in terms of scheme and technician and stuff as well. Your other question in terms of young men that we've had in our program, with the last name, of either coaches or former NFL players, from all the way from Morningwig when I first got here, to Runyon, to obviously Castillo was here at one point, and then obviously Trotter and to the Harrisons that we have now. But I think all those young men, I think it's funny. All of them have kind of been a little bit involved in our program in ways, even going back, Marty would help out. Gabe and I would go down and meet with Marty and go over some things, and he would give us some tips and stuff in terms of offense, but and helping myself and Gabe develop offensively. And Runyon was a part of the offense, was part of the staff from here and there, and then Trotter's obviously doing the same now, and part of our defensive staff, and Marvin has been around program. He's had some great conversations with our wide receiver coaches in meetings. So I think trying to bring them guys into the fold, but I also think that in terms of the kids and like your question, I think they all, no doubt, they have to find their own path, to find for themselves. And I think, each of them are capable of that and understood that at a young age. And, they appreciate obviously all the things they're given, for that. But I think those guys do a great job of kind of keeping their head down and wanting to pave their own path, in that sense, for themselves. And all of them will have the opportunity to do that for sure.
Talking to Tim Roken, the head coach at St. Joseph's Prep. Going to flip the switch now to the here and now, but I want to keep it in 19 before we get to 20. And I remember when I talked to Gabe Infante when he left to go to Temple to become an assistant there, and the last interview I did, he talked about Tim. That's what he said. He goes, "Tim's going to be fine. I left the cupboard pretty full," which of course he did, getting a big championship last year, number 10 national ranking, and a lot of those kids are back. Kyle McCord, the quarterback, going to Ohio State. And why I want to go back to 19 isn't to talk about the championship, but the way you did it, because you didn't have your star quarterback in Kyle McCord. And if I remember correctly, I don't think Jeremiah Trotter Jr. played in the championship game either. So the question is this: how much, even though you have all this talent, how much did the end, where some other kids had to step up, maybe out of position and do that, how much does that help you as you go into 2020?
I think it's a huge, it showed the confidence and how tight that group was. Obviously we're going to be missing going into this next season, as every year has 1 year, every season has a 1 year life expectancy. I mean, we got to go into a whole new year with a whole new set of seniors that are developing into leaders, and I think that was a huge piece of it last year with our guys, is our senior leadership, within our program, and as well as the leadership within, I think, our individual position groups, as our coaches do a great job of emulating that for them. And then in terms of those guys, yeah, absolutely, we lost Jeremiah week 5 earlier in the season, and then Kyle pretty much for the playoff run. And to have guys step up that unbelievable. I mean, Josiah, Jeremiah's younger brother, who's a freshman, how he was still a puppy, when he had to jump into Jeremiah's shoes, but how much he developed over that time, over those last, 7-8 games of the season, and how much on a different of a level he was playing at the end of the year is huge for him. Just the confidence going into the next year of playing that position, and then as well as on the offensive side of the ball, we had to move Malik Cooper, who had played the quarterback position, but obviously was doing well for us at the wide receiver position. And had to go back to quarterback, and the guys rallied around him. And I think, we have that kind of next man up mentality as a team. I think our coaches do a great job of developing the young men within our program to have that confidence, to be able to develop every day. And even if they're not the 22 kind of stepping out in the field at first, it only takes one, and their number is going to be called, and they want to make sure that they're ready. So, but I think as a group, moving forward, obviously coming off a successful year is great, and the way we end it, it was starting off on the right foot in terms of the leadership in the weight room, and in terms of the 2020 season, in terms of January and February, and kind of where we were, and I think right now, and kind of where we are. It's even more important where our rising seniors and, some key rising juniors within our program have to make sure that we're continuing to develop through this time so that when we come back, we can hit on all cylinders.
Yeah, I was going to ask any special things that you're doing right now as the head coach or the assistants, trying to keep these kids focused on the fact that, you're not in school. It's not time to mess around. At some point, we're going to hit the field again. Yeah,
absolutely. You don't want to. Everybody's. No one's hearing excuses. Coming out the other end. And then we'll get out into the field, and we got to make sure we find ways to get better every week. And I think our coaches are doing a great job of meeting with their individual groups. They're meeting offensively and defensively as units. We're having those coaches meetings as well. I think our guys are, they have two different types of workouts that they have available right now. One with guys that do have some access to weights that can be used either with a dumbbells or a barbell, and then weight, workout for a home body workout, and then having our leadership meeting with our leadership committee later today. And just making sure that guys are staying engaged. Guys are continuing to develop physically, mentally, as much as we can, in whatever ways we can that are at our disposal right now. So,
yeah, got to be creative at this point in time. Talking with Tim Roken right now, St. Joseph's Prep. As we wind things down here on the interview, they will be one of the top teams when we finally release our preseason 100, which, again, as I tell everybody, it's just for fun, folks. The algorithm does what's on the field, but I think Coach Roken will like where the Hawks are starting 2020. And here's the question. I remember Gabe used to say this all the time. We will play anyone, any place, any time. And you don't have the whole schedule announced yet, but you open up in Texas against a defending state champ, a team that has played in 2 straight state championships. And, oh, by the way, they're only 2 years old. So I'm assuming you accepted Gabe's challenge the same way, that mentality, right? We'll play anybody, any place, at any time.
Absolutely. I think it's part of our culture in terms of, building that competition within our guys. And, we want to go compete against the best, and, having those opportunities, thankfully. And usually this is kind of that first opening game is usually our big travel game. And we're going to take that down to Texas this year, to Houston. To open up against Shadow Creek, and they're, like you said, they're a young program but very productive, and been successful the last 2 years, and look forward to having an opportunity to put both of our programs together on what could be a nationally televised game, and and put our product out there and start start off the year and kind of take, the 2020 journey. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I said to Gabe before, you guys don't like duck anybody on those travel games either. It's always a top one. I know you also have St. John's on there, but you know what I wanted to talk to you about is being an alum of the Philadelphia Catholic League, playing there during your high school ball, and just give you a chance here to brag a little bit for the people around the country that don't know how good the Philadelphia Catholic League is. Why don't you put on your ambassador hat for the entire league and give people a little bit of knowledge on it.
Yeah, I think, this goes back to me kind of learning a little bit more about this when I used to work with the U.S. Army All-American game. And I used to work with them in kind of the selection committee and working as kind of an intern there before I was hired on full-time for a year before I started coaching here at St. Joe's Prep. And that's when, in terms of selection of the guys and where they came from, you start to realize, real quick, where all a lot of the top guys, high school guys, were coming from, and we're being rated as top guys in terms of Cali, Texas, and Florida and Georgia, and the Northeast here and there. But I think over the years, really, in the last 10 years, I think the schools in the Northeast and in the North Jersey and in Philadelphia and the Maryland area. And especially, like you said, the Philadelphia area and the Catholic League. I mean, there's just so many schools and so many kids, and there are some really great football coaches in the area that I think do a great job of developing their young men, and these kids are coming up and with all the resources they have in terms of trainers and weightlifting and speed workouts and all these different things. I mean, things that we didn't have when we were younger, and the advantages and resources that these young men have developed in that sense. And then, I think you have some great football minds up here that are developing some kids, and they get to the college level, and then they go in with a different edge. They play on a different edge, and they're able to make an impact earlier. And, the CSN, I think Pennsylvania, had 10 guys or so, I think, drafted.
You got it right.
And I know they're up in the top 5 or 6 or 7 states, which is awesome. And I think, I know there's a ton of, being in the shoes that I've been for the past few years and playing against some great ones around the area and seeing them go on to some great schools. I know that number is going to go up a little bit more in the next few years as well. So I think it's pretty cool to see that coming out of Pennsylvania and just the Northeast as well. I know, like I said, with New Jersey and Maryland too.
Yeah, no, I always love bragging, and you had the number right there. It's a 10. Tim Roken on the line, and last question for you, Coach. Like I said, I'm Mr. Positive. I've been saying this over the last month on this podcast. There will be a 2020. It may look a little different by the time we get to it, but I think it's going to be pretty close to starting on the right time. What are some of the things, once you finally get back onto the field and make sure the kids' conditioning is right and all that, what are some of the boxes that you feel this team has to check to maybe live up to the expectations that are going to be thrown on it by all the national ranking services?
I think just making sure that with having a layoff and not having the structure that we normally have at this point, making sure that when we come back, we're getting back into the flow of things pretty comfortably, and obviously we're not going to have depending on when we're available to get back, we're probably going to be out time. So, from a conditioning standpoint, like you mentioned, from a scheme standpoint, in terms of getting install in, and just making sure that, each and every one of us, within the program are trying to find ways to get better every day. Because if we don't come back from being locked up like, some Tigers right now, just waiting to get out and get on the field and get working and get going. If you can't come out with some energy and some enthusiasm come that point, then maybe you shouldn't be playing the game, because we're going to look forward to get going when they give us the green light, and just doing any ways possible that we can prepare and develop to get better, so we can start the year off on a good foot, and and see how we can end this 2020 journey. So looking forward to it.
Should be fun. And I got one more question. I thought of this as you were giving that answer. And we have so many listeners because I'm from the Lehigh Valley and all that. All over, we got 100,000 listeners, but a lot of them are from the Lehigh Valley. And I was saying to you that I got to know Coach Denny Dowds at ESU during my time there. And I just thought of this question: how much of Coach Dowds is in Tim Roken? Do you have any Denny Dowds in you at all? Just a fun question.
It's funny. There's a group of us as former players and teammates under Denny Dowds that we're coaches now, obviously including Jimmy up there at Stroudsburg has taken over for him, and we were there at the same time. And I think all of us, and Tom Sugden, who coaches with me, I think all of us have a little bit of Denny or a little bit of Terwilliger or a little bit of Santella or some of those guys up there have been up there for many years now on the staff. And Denny, always, I think first and foremost made sure that he was going to find ways to impact you as a young man, off the field, and things that you would laugh at the start of kind of a meeting, and his kind of, we would have our Monday meetings, and he would give his kind of tip of the day. And they might be like some of the most senseless things, but things you don't think of, or things you would laugh at as, a young, immature 18 or, 21-year-old, but, just, how to shake somebody's hand or how to look somebody in the eye, if you're not comfortable talking to somebody, looking at your eye, stare at their eyebrow, they'll never know the difference. Or, when somebody asks you to, for the salt or pepper, pass them both, at the dinner table, like little things like that that will stick with you, right? When you're out to dinner or you're going to shake someone's hand, it's crazy. But, they're the type of things that, obviously not, he taught us a lot about the game. But I think something that he wanted to make sure that he was making an impact. And I think that, as a coach, I always want to make sure to do that as well, as make sure that we're developing our guys as young men to be able to go and do great things, as fathers and husbands and things like that too. So.
Oh yeah, it's so funny as you were describing him there, and I was kind of going back. I told you before we rolled the tape here that sometimes I would say, Denny, we're on camera here. You shouldn't really be saying that, but of course he trusted me, that sort of thing. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
And he knows every Sunday, any road trip we've taken or any he's taken, he knows where the best Sunday places in the area. He's got a sweet tooth in that sense. I remember doing an interview in Stroudsburg, and we had to go travel somewhere, and of course, anytime we did, we had to stop and get a sundae or something. So, very enjoyable in that sense.
Well, I think, as you described in there, I'm sitting there thinking he may have been Mike Leach before there was a Mike Leach, the way he tossed the ball around a lot and just kind of being a little quirky. Now we'll leave it at that. But
if somebody had a mic on him in those early 2000 days, I tell you what, he was, he was something else. But love him to death. And obviously Jimmy's done a great job of filling his shoes up there and moving on there. So.
Yeah, no, but it's fun to reminisce about him a little bit. But Coach, to wrap up, best of luck. We're excited to see where the Hawks will end when the algorithm spits it out. I know you got one more game to put in there, so we'll see where you guys fall. And just thank you for taking the time to enlighten the country on what you guys have been building there since Gabe and Fonte took over, and now you've got the reins. So best of luck in 2020 to everybody.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, and go Hawks.
That's Tim Roken, St. Joseph's Prep, the head coach of the program, heading into his second year. The High School Football America podcast is brought to you by GameStrat, America's premier sideline instant replay system with outstanding reliability and customer service and different plans, priced right for every coach's budget. To get a demo, go to GameStrat.com or click on the GameStrat banner ad located on every page of HighSchoolFootballAmerica.com.